What's up, everybody? We're back this week with another video. We're gonna focus more on symptoms this week. Kind of just all the symptoms that I've experienced with my anxiety, and I realize that some things I might have, others don't have, or vice versa. But hopefully, me talking about this will, help anybody that's kind of found themselves like into a deep dive of the internet trying to figure out what's wrong with them, or why they're feeling this way or anything like that, because I know I'm very guilty of feeling a sensation or pain or something of that nature in my body, and going straight to Google and falling into that rabbit hole. And a lot of the times that can end up being very detrimental to your mental health and aggravate your anxiety even more. So yeah, I'm mainly going to stick to the anxiety symptoms. Later on we'll kind of get into the depression and how that came about and what kind of happens with that and how I feel during those periods. But yeah, so we're just going to talk about anxiety mostly. So one of the most common stigmas around anxiety is that it's all mental, and anybody that has anxiety, or like for me, I have generalized anxiety disorder as well as panic disorder. So I am generally, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, in a state of anxiousness, and that's just the way it is. But anxiety might originate in the brain. I'm not a scientist, whatever. I'm just speculating here. It might start in the brain, but there is, without a doubt, physical symptoms that accompany anxiety. And so let's talk about those. So, probably the number one symptom that's the scariest for me and probably a lot of others is your heart, right? You get into these high anxious moments or panic attacks, and your heart rate goes up, starts to race, it starts to pound out of your chest, and that's a terrifying experience. And even if you're not anxious or anything, you could be sitting on the couch and not feel anxious at all, and suddenly your heart starts to beat fast, or feels like it's skipping beats, or having palpitations, or whatever the case is. And then in a matter of 5 minutes, you're having a panic attack because your brain has shifted all of its focus from whatever you're doing in that moment to your heart, and it sucks. And it's one of the biggest things that I struggle with, probably. It's just, there's a term for it. I can't remember it, but it's pretty much being, very conscious of everything that's going on in your body. And a lot of people with anxiety, or more specifically health anxiety, struggle with that on a daily basis. For me, a lot of times I feel like I don't even have to be taking my pulse or anything of that nature, and I could just count my heartbeats, and that's purely off of the sensation in my chest, or whatever the case is. It's just like I am always so conscious of what's going on with my body. And it is a like double-edged sword when it comes to anxiety. It's good to be conscious of your health and be worried about your health and want to be healthy. But when you have anxiety disorders or panic disorder, when you're reaching that level of awareness with your body, it becomes toxic. It's not good for you. Not good for your mental state, at least. You know, me being so aware of my heartbeat, my breathing, my swallowing, you know, it's led me to a lot of problems, and it's not fun at all. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so yeah, I mean that's mainly the heart. Palpitations, your heart beating fast, and when you get into a panic attack, especially a panic attack, there's so many things that are happening inside your body, but you're so focused on that fear, you're so focused on, am I dying? I feel like I'm dying, I gotta be dying, that all these things trigger in your body, right? It's like, it makes sense that it happens, but when it happens to you for no reason, when it happens to you when you're sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing but watching TV, it sucks. Like, we don't want that to happen. I don't want to be sitting on the couch and for some reason my brain thinks that there's something to fear going on, right? And then my heart rate jumps. I start to get cold chills. The lights become brighter. I start getting like a tunnel vision. And the best way I could describe the tunnel vision, like when I've been into the most severe panic attacks I've had, it's like literally you get tunnel vision. And it's like the lens in which you are viewing the world through your eyes gets smaller and smaller, and you just get so hyper focused on that panic attack. You're right. Like, even my hearing, I've had like auditory sensations in the middle of panic attacks. Like, it feels like I'm underwater, like my ears are flushing in a way. And it's tough. It's tough putting it into words what you feel. And it's even more tough looking back at it after the fact, right? Because, at least for me personally, dealing with it for so long, there's a lot of shame and guilt that comes after panic attacks, right? After those episodes, it's like you start to get angry with yourself because you knew what it was. I was conscious, somewhat conscious at least, that I was having a panic attack. I think no matter what happens when we have these panic attacks, there's a certain level of awareness that you kind of suspect it's a panic attack, and it's just a panic attack, right? Like, you certainly feel like you're dying. You certainly feel like your world is ending right in that very moment. But there's a certain level of you realizing that it's probably just a panic attack. So afterwards, when you look back on it, sometimes it's funny. Sometimes you can sit there and kind of like find some humor in the fact that, why did I get so worked up over this? A lot of times though, it just, leaves you feeling guilty and shame, sadness, because you got so worked up and you let yourself snowball into such a severe panic attack, right? It's like we've all been told the steps of things you can do to kind of calm yourself down, and sometimes they work, right? If you catch a panic attack early enough, before it kind of crosses that boundary of being a full-blown panic attack. There are things that I've done that kind of help me calm down, right? And I by no means have it all figured out. I just know that there's some things that help me calm down if I catch it early enough. Like I said, if it crosses that boundary, a lot of times there's nothing I gotta do, nothing I can do. I have to ride it out, you know? And, like for instance, if I notice that my breathing is getting shallow or my heart's picking up, you know, I try to make sure I take deep breaths and kind of divert my attention if I can, because a lot of times I can't, and sometimes it helps, you know. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to go to the sink and turn the water to as cold as it can get, and I just splash it all on my face. And, you know, I've read some articles and watched some videos where apparently, you know, like cold exposure like that kind of like shocks your system, right? And not only helps you in being able to distract yourself from that current anxiety or panic, but, you know, there's also some mental benefits from it. So, but yeah, I mean, heart rate shooting up, you know, tunnel vision, hearing issues. One sensation that I've always struggled to describe is that when I get really anxious, I kind of get this feeling like I'm standing on a boat dock at a lake or something. Like I feel like the ground underneath me is not steady. I don't necessarily feel like I'm gonna pass out. I mean, I have been in some panic attacks where I felt like I was gonna pass out because I was just sweating, heart pounding, breathing, hyperventilating, and I felt like I was gonna pass out then. But sometimes I just get this overwhelming sensation, kind of like I'm not grounded, you know, like I'm just kind of floating up and down. And there's so many symptoms. I could probably sit here for 2 hours and go over things I've experienced. What else? And you know, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, you get so many thoughts, and it's just a whirlwind of thoughts, emotions going through you at once. You know, you can't pick out the rational thoughts from the irrational thoughts. After the fact, a lot of times I can. You know, I'll laugh at it, be like, why would I, you know, why the fuck would I think that? But when you're in those panic and high anxiety moments, it's just like, it seems like that you just lose the ability to distinguish rational from irrational thoughts, right? And it sucks. And we'll kind of talk about health anxiety and how that kind of spiraled out of control for me later on in my life. But, you know, primarily my late teenage years, my early 20s, it was mostly just, you know, general anxiety, discomfort, you know, never feeling at peace with my body. You know, I felt like I was in a constant battle with my mind. And it was just, it always seemed like my body and my mind were never in sync, you know. And a lot of times it was like, and I tell people this all the time, it's like when I'm actively doing something, focused on something, working, you know, my brain is distracted by a task or actually doing something physically. I don't struggle with anxiety a lot, you know. But when I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing, I mean, even if I'm watching Netflix, watching a TV show, it's like that downtime is when I'm battling the demon, like my demons the most, my internal demons, right? I'm battling the negative thoughts, that negative voice in your head that's just it's not there for your well-being, and it sucks, because when you want to rest, when you want to enjoy your downtime, a lot of the times that's when your anxiety is the worst, and it's a battle, a constant struggle, a constant battle, and every day you're trying to fix it. And with the way my personality is, it's when something goes wrong, I wanna fix it ASAP, and I wanna figure out what's going on and what I can do to improve it. And I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do that's can help regulate it and decrease it, but you know, easier said than done is all I can say. It's easier to say. I mean, it's easy for somebody to tell you that, if you just go work out, if you go get some sun, go do this, get off the couch, when your body is riddled with anxiety and even depression, the smallest things become overwhelming. The smallest things become unachievable. Like people come up to me, it's like, what's your plans? And I don't have plans, honestly. I'm not a planner. Don't know if it's just who I am or has something to do with my anxiety, but in a lot of ways, I'm just trying to get through the day, trying to get to tomorrow. So I'm not really a planner in any case. If somebody was to come up to me now and be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would say, I have no fucking idea. I really don't. I don't think about that stuff. I'm a very short term guy. And, I'm sure a lot of you have been there. Maybe still there. I'm still there. I mean, let's be honest. I'm there. A lot. I have good days. I have really shitty days. And that's just the way it is. But the best thing we can do is talk about it and talk about how we feel, and that makes it easier. Hearing someone else's story and their struggles can benefit you in a lot of ways. And I'd like to say I have it all figured out and have cured my anxiety, but that's just simply not the case. Over the course of my adulthood, I've probably been to an emergency room 10 or more times. And most of the time, I've walked out of those emergency visits being told that, everything was fine. Everything was okay. And it was just anxiety. It was just panic attacks. I've been in so many situations where I thought I was dying. And I wasn't. And it's hard to go, especially to an ER. I don't like doctors, and I have nothing against doctors or medical anything, right? It's just the thought of going, it's such an unknown for me, and I have no idea what's going on. It's almost like a fear of the unknown type deal. I just don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the emergency room. So, but yeah, I've I've been to the ER 10 plus times probably in my life for what I thought was either a heart attack, stroke. I was just dying, whatever the case. And every time I've walked out of there with a clean bill of health, you know, sure, sometimes my blood pressure would be high, but guess what? Your blood pressure rises when you're stressed. And, you know, I've had EKGs done, blood work done. I've had my thyroid tested. I've had my hormone levels tested. You know, chest x-rays. All these things tested. And every time, you're fine. No issues. Blood work's fine. Thyroid's fine. Chest x-ray's fine. And as much as a relief it is to hear those things, it's also frustrating, right? Because it kind of leaves you walking out of the hospital in the exact same situation that you went into it, right? And most of the time, people come out of the hospital with a cast on their foot, you know, something, right? Something to make them better. But we get to walk out of the hospital and know that we're okay physically, right? Nothing is showing up on tests, we're fine, but we still have anxiety every day, still have depression, still have our panic attacks, and in a lot of ways we feel stuck. We feel like there's, you know, no way out of this, and it sucks. But so yeah, for anybody out there that's, you know, been to the emergency room and feeling any type of guilt or shame about that, don't. Because a good portion of us have been there, still there. I guarantee you I'll go to the ER another time, multiple probably times in my life, and it'll probably be for anxiety. You know, I'll give you one story about this one night. I was sitting in my apartment, and you know, I was just hanging out. And this is the tricky thing about anxiety too, is because it almost seems like that it adapts, right? It's like once you pinpoint something that you know is anxiety, right? Like heart palpitations, for example. It's like you have a pretty good grasp on your heart palpitations. You know it's when you're stressed. You know it's when you're anxious. So that worry is not as high, right? And it's almost like it seems like your brain kind of adapts, right? It finds something else, it finds another sensation to send in your body to make you fear, right? To make you fear it. You know, one night I was sitting in my apartment. I had this sensation kind of like travel up my left arm and into my neck, right? And I never felt this before. It was kind of like a numbing sensation that traveled up my arm into my neck and a little bit of my face. So immediately, you know, my breathing starts to get short. I think I'm having a stroke. My heart's pounding out of my chest. And that was probably the worst panic attack I've ever had in my life. You know, it was such a new sensation. It was something I was not prepared for at all. And when you're not prepared for those sensations, your fear is worse, your panic is worse. And, you know, I was waking up my wife out of a dead sleep, telling her, you know, something was wrong. You know, I thought I was dying. I was like dropping to my knees, like my heart was beating so fast, and I was just sweating and hyperventilating so fast. I felt like I was gonna faint, pass out, and you know, I thought I was dying. And this is like peak COVID too, so you got the stress of COVID, you know, and this was peak COVID when, you know, they were telling everybody to stay away from each other. You know, you were reading all over the news that the hospitals were just like max capacity, you know, family members couldn't visit their family members in hospitals. It was just like all this stressful shit that you were reading about hospitals. but I still made her call an ambulance. You know, the medics got to the apartment. They come in. They're wearing like hazmat gear, right? Because it's peak COVID. They got like a onesie, white onesie on with like these covers on their shoes. They're like full hooded up with mask. You know, they're taking my blood pressure. You know, Mr. Emerson, your blood pressure is a little high, but you know it's went down since we've been here, so I mean, that's a good sign. And, you know, at that point, I was kind of coming down off of it, and I had a good idea that it was a panic attack at that point. You know, I hadn't died yet. It was at least what I was thinking. Like, I'm not dead yet, okay? But they still recommended me to go to the ER because of my elevated blood pressure. And I did. And everything was going good. They took me back to a room, did an EKG on me. And this older gentleman came in, the doctor. And like I said, peak COVID. I don't really, you know, I'm sure doctors were under a lot of stress. He came in and, you know, I told him all these things that I was feeling, you know, the numbness traveling up my arm into my face, and he seemed very nonchalant about it, is all I can say. You know, he didn't seem very compassionate. It was like once he made his mind up that it was anxiety, or I told him I had an anxiety disorder, he kind of shifted his gears really quick. And you know, that's one of the problems that we face with society. You know, there's just such a lack of empathy or compassion when it comes to anxiety and depression and, you know, mental health disorders, that a lot of times we run into situations like that, you know, where people just shrug you off like you have a headache, or, you know, it's just a bad migraine or something like that. You know, it's just like you feel so dismissed and not cared for. And when you're in the middle of a panic attack and you feel like you're dying, that's the last thing you want. Like, you want somebody to be attentive and compassionate, and that was the opposite experience that I had in that hospital. But and you know, this one younger nurse came in and she offered me some medication to calm me down. And at that point, I was very, I wouldn't say anti-medication, but it was just another one of those things. It was like the fear of the unknown for me. I was very against it, and I had no reason to be against it. It was just, I didn't know much about it, and I was terrified of it. I'm not very into taking medication as it is. Like, if I have a headache, I'll just kind of sit through the pain instead of take ibuprofen. That's just the type of person I am. I don't like taking stuff. So the thought of her like hooking me up to an IV and injecting me with something that was just gonna forcibly calm me down, I didn't like that. You know, I didn't know how it was gonna make me feel, and I was scared. So I just said, "No, I'll be alright." And but yeah, that was my worst panic attack. And like I said, you know, anxiety seems to have a way of adapting once you figure it out, right? Like, once you think you've made a one step forward with your anxiety, it has a way of coming back into your life or making its way back in a different way, you know. And we'll talk about more later, you know, kind of how my symptoms have changed, and I developed depression from my anxiety. Well, I can't say it was from my anxiety. I would probably say it was a contributing factor, but there's just so much unknown about anxiety, and such a challenge, you know. I've seen some horrible things in my life, and I've been in some traumatic experiences and experienced things that, you know, I wish I wouldn't have, but till this day, I have never ran into a bigger challenge in my life than my mental health. Like, my mental health is the number one issue I have. And it affects me in every way, you know. My motivation to do things. A lot of times I avoid some social situations like crowds or something like that because I know it's gonna trigger or aggravate my anxiety, you know. Chronic pain, you know. I have all these sensations throughout my body a lot, you know, like random pains, aches that just, it's like if you feel these pains after you got done working out or running a mile and a half, you would be able to put some justification on it, right? Like, cool, my legs hurt because I ran a mile and a half. Cool, my chest is sore because I just did 100 push-ups, right? But when you have that type of pain for no reason, it sucks. It scares the shit out of you. It's very tiring and very tiring to your mental health. You know, I have so many physical things that have come from my anxiety. You know, my stomach. My stomach has always been very closely linked to my anxiety. You know, irritable bowel syndrome, digestive issues, heartburn. You know, when I get really nervous, I get really clammy. Like, I start to sweat. My hands get really sweaty. And if I'm not sweating, I get really bad cold chills. I get really cold. There's just so many things that happen inside of our bodies. And everybody's different when we have anxiety. You know, for me, I have chronic fatigue, right? And it's not like physical fatigue. A lot of times it is. Like, my body will feel very worn out if I'm had like a few days of high anxiety. Like, I feel like I've, you know, did a really hard workout. Like, my arms are weak, my legs are weak, whatever the case may be. Like, I do get that chronic fatigue, right? But most of my chronic fatigue is just mental, right? It's just like, I feel like a brain fog a lot of the time. It's hard for me to concentrate on things. And I'm a napper. And I don't know if that's my anxiety or depression, but a lot of times, you know, I just get the overwhelming feeling that I just want to go to sleep, and I'll do it. Especially if I'm having a depression, like a really depressed day or really anxious day. My go-to is I just sleep it off in hopes that when I wake up, I'll feel better. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You know, it's like I've become aware of so many habits that I have in my life that I know are negatively contributing to my anxiety, right? But when you mix that anxiety with depression, with anything, even just anxiety, it's hard to make those changes, right? It's hard for a normal person that doesn't have anxiety to go to the gym when they don't want to go to the gym. It's hard for a normal person that doesn't have anxiety to eat a healthy diet when they know they should be. And then you add anxiety, you add depression to that struggle, and it seems unobtainable. It seems impossible, and it becomes overwhelming. It's like I've spent a lot of my days feeling shame and guilt, frustration, because it's like I haven't been eating how I want to be. I know what I need to be doing. Why can't I just do it? And I start to put a lot of self-blame, or it's like, I need to get outside. I need to work out more. And it's like, it sucks because we're conscious of the things we know can probably help us out a lot, but it's getting there. It's making that step that's the hardest part. It's like getting yourself to the gym is the hardest part. Giving yourself the motivation to get off the couch or get out of bed is the hardest part. It's like, I know the type of person I am. It's like, I know that if I get a routine, because I'm a very routine type of person, I do the same things when I wake up. And to be honest with you, I'm such a routine type of person that when my routine is disrupted in any way, I get severe anxiety. And it'll inadvertently, fuck up my day if anything in my routine is disrupted, because I'm such a, for a person that lives such a not normal, chaotic life, any disruption in that little bit of normalcy triggers my anxiety, and it's just so much, so many physical symptoms that come with anxiety that a lot of people don't understand, and the more we talk about it, the more they will understand, hopefully. I've been in so many situations where people have looked at me dead in my face and thought I was making it up, or this one time, I'm not gonna use any names, but this officer above me, let's just say I was working a job where they monitor your mental and physical health very closely in order to do the job I was doing. So I'd went to the clinic or something one day for like a dentist appointment. That they give you these sheets to fill out. Have you experienced this in the past month? Experienced this in the past 2 weeks? Whatever the case is, right? There was a couple boxes or something like feeling anxious, feeling dizzy or lightheaded. And I checked them because, it's like, okay, yeah, I checked them. And I was like pretty new to this base and this job. I didn't know what happens when you check these boxes. So, lo and behold, I'm at work later. I get called to the captain's office. He brings me in and he starts badgering me with all these questions, why did you check this? Why did you check that? I told him, I was like, well, sir, I have anxiety. And, it was very clear within the first 5 seconds of that conversation that he had no idea, or he wasn't educated on anxiety at all. He was like, Emerson, I don't understand how you can just sit on the couch and feel anxious. Like, I just don't get that. Like, what is that? I looked at him and I was like, well, sir, you don't have anxiety, so of course you would not understand how that feels. But, there's so many situations that we run into on a daily basis where you feel dismissed or people think you're faking it, and doing what we're doing right now, which is talking more about it, as science improves and education improves, hopefully the world will better understand what we go through. But all we can do now is just talk about it, and hopefully that helps. Anybody that doesn't understand it, hopefully they get a better picture of it, because it's rough. Because you feel alone enough as it is. There's anxiety and depression as a way of isolating you both physically and mentally. And people not understanding what you're going through, or having no empathy, or just not caring, it seems like, does not help the situation. But yeah, hopefully I think I went over everything I wanted to, you know. This was a longer video, but I wanted to get into more detail as possibly as I could about it. You know, there's so many symptoms. Like I said, we could sit here for hours and talk about things I've felt throughout my body. You know, chest tightness, high blood pressure, blurred vision, hearing issues, your ears ringing, you know, restless leg syndrome, weakness in your body and your muscles, you know, stomach issues, digestive issues, headaches, you know. For me, another bad thing I get is when I'm anxious, I tend to trap all my stress in my neck, right? I get really bad, like tension headaches, you know, on the back of my neck, and it's debilitating headaches sometimes, but there's just so much. But hopefully I covered a lot today. Hopefully if anybody had any questions or thought they were feeling alone in some situation, this kind of helps you out. Definitely, if you have any questions, ask them or something in the comment section. I'll definitely reply to them. But yeah, not sure what the next video will be. Might make the next one, you know, maybe talk about some different things, some different events that might have led to my anxiety, might have led to my depression. Probably my next video will actually be my depression and how that came about and things that might have contributed to that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and hope this video helps you, and I'll see you guys in about a week or two. Make another video and we'll cover some more things, and hope to see you guys there. Alright, take it easy.